Hello, my dear gardeners. If you are somewhat timid about trimming plants in your garden, this video is for you. My name is Olga, Carmody, master gardener from Connecticut. Join me on trimming my barberry bush right there and the row of boxwoods. Let's begin. Okay, so when we are going around here at the back of my garden, here I have this barberry bush, which was really big here, and every year, once a year, I trim it. So look at this. Come around here, my dear cameraman, and look how it is overgrown just in one season. See, I started trimming here, and when you look down the path here, Boxwoods on one side and barberry they are taking over, you know. So this is the time, the middle of spring, to control it. Barberry bush is going to be trimmed, and boxwoods. The middle of spring is ideal time to trim boxwoods, you know. And let's talk why do we trim our plants in the garden to begin with. And a lot of beginner gardeners might think that the main reason is to make sure that plants fit into the space which we designed for it. And very often when we go to the nurseries, we buy these little puny, cute little plants, and we think they will always stay that way. Well, garden always changes, and our plants, look at this, becoming bigger and bigger. And what do beginner gardeners think? Let me pick up my secateurs and shape it into the lollipop shape. Well, that reason for trimming would be actually 101. The first two main reasons why we trim our plants in the garden would be to showcase the best features of them, right? So for example, here with this barberry, I wanted to have a nice green wall here, kind of continuing the green border between us and our neighbors, right? And the second reason why we trim our plants would be we want the fruit production or the bloom production, which makes fruits on fruiting trees, right? So if we are talking about roses, we trim roses because we want blooms. And proper trimming of roses would bring better blooms, right? So these are two reasons: to showcase the plant to the best of its growing features, and then to create the most blooms and most fruits. You see how barberry always wants to come here. So now my kids, they love to walk through this path, and now they're not doing it because all the barberry, which is prickly by the way, is in the way. So we are going to give this barberry a nice haircut. And there is a big science in trimming shrubs and trees in the garden, and these techniques were developed by gardeners so many centuries, you know. So you might think that techniques differ, but no, actually trimming techniques are so polished already through the centuries that they are always the same in each country, each season, each garden, and each spot in the world in a way, which is nice because a lot of job is done for you already, you know. So that's also important for the beginner gardener to know. These skills are already well developed, kind of tested, and all what you need to do in case you have a plant and you don't know how to trim it, pick up a good book on trimming plants in the garden, go particularly to the plant you're interested in, and learn everything about trimming. And what I'm doing here, I'm trying to get, well, it's hard here. Probably I will be able to achieve just vertical ascent on my barberry, but usually the good thing on shrubs is to start with wider base and slowly move narrower to the top. This way you let sun have access to the bottom branches too. Well, in this case, bottom branches here are kind of not there because we have storage for our wood here. And you know what, each year, it's not like we are doing trimming in the garden every month of the year. So it's good to brush up on the knowledge. And I have a book on trimming, and every several years I just go through it and I just kind of remind myself how to do it, you know, because some trees have to be thinned only every third or second year. So that knowledge is kind of get forgotten, you know, in the garden. And the main thing to remember is when we prune in winter, it encourages that pruning, encourages growth. And when we prune in summer, in most cases, it keeps the growing nature of the plant in check. It kind of restrains it, stops it. So a lot of beginner gardeners have this plant, okay, and they do the drastic pruning in winter with hopes that that plant will stay in its smaller size. But it's counterintuitive because plant starts growing. So for plants which you want to restrain, majority of them, would be a good idea to do in summer. Of course, there are limitations in timing because some plants can get really sick, it can get all sorts of diseases from fresh cuts, so you have to be very strategic about which plants to trim when. You basically have to know your plant. And I know that barberry is very difficult to really damage with spring pruning. The most what it suffers here is from mites, but it's, you know what, it's not really get a lot of damage from it, so spring trimming here is excellent. Hopefully my kids would be able to walk here all right, and barberry is not going to give them a hard time. Also, what trimming does to the plant, to the stem, let's talk about the anatomy of the stem. So we have a stem and we have apical bud on top, and that apical bud controls the growth of the stem forward by producing special hormones which are discouraging the side buds from developing. And what happens when we take that apical bud off by pruning, right, by doing this to the stem, then those hormones are not released and side buds start to be activated and they start growing. So we have what? When we damage the stem, then we have side buds growing. That's how we get the bushiness in the plants. For example, boxwoods right here. That's how they became all nice and fluffy like this, because I always damage the stems in the middle of spring. By the way, that's the best time to do trimming on boxwoods. And then boxwoods create side shoots. For example, look at this stem. Just come here, my cameraman. Look at this. So, I'm not sure, I didn't trim this boxwood last year. So this stem was damaged here, right? It got its terminal bud cut off. And look how many side shoots were activated. And they are creating bushy growth. So what happens if I do this to these side shoots? They will divide again. And here we have, instead of one shoot in 2 years, we have 20, let's put it this way. And that's how our shrubs in the garden become bushy. I kind of like the new growth. It's nice and green and happy. But don't worry, it's the middle of spring and very quickly barberry bush will create happy little new growth here, which would be beautiful and green too. And here we have a situation where barberry wants to take the space of my abavites. We cannot let that happen, because abavites really don't fight for their space. They kind of retrieve into the dead stems. So I am making sure that barberry is not pushing its way into this empty space. Okay. I will just trim these tops, make sure that we'll continue dividing. A little bit, not much, you know. This was a plan for this barberry, to create a nice wall here. And since I am trimming it every year, it's nice and bushy here. So the purpose of the shrub is to keep the hedge here. Well, the situation here is different. I have used here a bush, yew bush growing here, and I wanted to go kind of higher here, eventually close this pocket where we see our neighbors. It's kind of bare majority of the year. So this is a big, you know, shrub, a small tree. And I need to take away barberries because they're pushing, and give space for you to grow here. You know, don't let plants bully you. They can be trimmed successfully. You just have to know the nature of your plant and the time when you trim it. Because bad trimming can kill the tree, you know, or the shrub. For example, if you plant a rose, trim a rose, let's say in the severe heat of the summer, and then don't water it, it might be the death of your rose. All right, I think my barberry trimming is done for the year. Barberry plant will produce awkward shoots here and there, but they would be easily controlled by just snapping them away. So this job is done. Now, boxwoods. This year I was traveling, I guess as I told you before, and I missed the maintenance on boxwoods against boxwood leaf miners. So I'm sure that leaf miners had a chance already to put their eggs in. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a sharp trim with the hope that all those leaf miners will be cut off. Well, that's kind of a drastic thing. The same with boxwoods. The majority of functions which boxwoods are doing in our garden is hedges, and we are interested in bushy growth and nice shapes. Of course, health. We want our boxwoods to be healthy. And boxwoods are very easy to trim. They are ready to tolerate heavy trimming. That's why they're so loved by many in the garden. Although now they have all sorts of diseases coming their way, which I'm not sure where it's going to go in my garden, because I have a lot of boxwoods. Boxwoods blight, right? And again, we are trying for the bottom to be slightly wider if we can, you know. So here, my trimming is doing two functions. I'm keeping my boxwoods bushy. I don't want them to be airy in nature, in gross nature. And I am trying to develop this 1, 2, 3, 4 boxwoods as hedge here, one hedge. Trimming is one of those right away satisfying jobs because you get results right away. It's not like planting a little plant and then waiting for several years for that perennial to show something. Right here I trimmed it, and right away the passage is open and my kids can walk around, hopefully. So look at my hedge, Boxwood's hedge. I made a little bit of a dent here to the right, to that side, but hey, it's okay. Boxwoods can easily, you know, the growth of boxwoods can easily be corrected. All right, that's it about trimming, my dear gardeners. Please do subscribe, and I will see you around in our next videos. Happy gardening!